Good morning. It is Friday, January 22nd, 2021. This is a virtual special meeting of the Commissioners of the City of Rehoboth Beach. I'm calling the meeting to order at 9:00 a.m. I'd like to call the roll call. Commissioner Ed Shranowski. You're muted, Ed. We see you are there, and we'll note you are there while you unmute. Commissioner Richard Byrne.
Here.
Commissioner Susan Gay.
Here.
Commissioner Jay Legree.
Here.
Commissioner Patrick Gossett.
Here.
Commissioner Pat Caluzzi.
Here.
And I'm Mayor Stan Mills. We have a full complement. We have a quorum, and we're able to formally conduct business today. Thank you all for being here. I'd like to welcome and thank you for all those watching today, and especially to those participants who registered in advance and are wanting to speak and contribute to today's conversation. Those members of the public registered to speak today include the following: Carol Everhart of the Rehoboth Beach, Dewey Beach Chamber of Commerce, citizen Walter Brittingham, citizen Gary Glass, citizen Honey Fisher, citizen Mike Strange, citizen Jan Conacy, citizen Heather Metz, citizen Frank Cooper, and we also have more than a handful of representatives from Verizon and a lighting company that are here, and I'm not going to recognize them by name. We'll recognize them at the time they are called on to address the commissioners. Thank you very much. As far as correspondence relating to this agenda item, I only have one piece of information, and that is a letter or memo from the Environment Committee to the Board of Commissioners. Commissioner Byrne, you're the chair of that committee. Do you have it in front of you? Would you mind reading it, please?
I'm bringing it up. Thank you, Mayor. The City of Rehoboth Beach Environment Committee passed the following motion on January 14th, 2021 at the regularly scheduled meeting. The Environment Committee recommends the City of Rehoboth Beach adopt the recommendations of Dark Skies Rehoboth for all new or replacement lighting, and particularly for environmentally sensitive areas such as the Boardwalk. Please see the presentation that's been made to the Environment Committee and others from the Dark Skies group. The Rehoboth Beach Mayor and Commissioners should choose dark sky compliant lighting for the Boardwalk and all new or replacement lighting in the city, with the goal of becoming a dark sky compliant community. The Mayor and Commissioners should consider incorporating dark skies initiatives into future building codes in commercial and residential areas. This is in accordance with the 2010 CDP section 6.41 to use environmentally responsible lighting. This will help the city to reduce overall light pollution, become more energy efficient, reduce environmental impacts to turtles and migratory birds, and reduce negative effects on human sleep cycles. All lighting should be 2700 Kelvin or less and designed to, quote, dark skies best practices, end quote, for shielding. Any wireless communication facilities or other supporting equipment attached to light poles shall in no way cast a shade area anywhere in the light pattern. All dark skies approved lighting must also comply with the 2010 CDP requirement for meeting the character and design goals of the city. The design of the lighting and any supporting equipment attached to the poles shall be approved by the Mayor and Commissioners to meet the character and aesthetics of the City of Rehoboth Beach. Replacing the lights on the Boardwalk will have a large impact on the city. We urge the Mayor and Commissioners not to proceed with replacing the lights on the Boardwalk until dark skies and aesthetic requirements can be met. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. And again, Commissioner Byrne is chair of the Environment Committee. Thank you for reading that. I do want to acknowledge that the Boardwalk and Beach Committee had similar concerns expressed in a report to the mayor and commissioners presented at the last meeting. That was embedded in the last meeting of January 15th, I believe.
Yeah.
So again, I wanted to acknowledge that. And with that, we're going to get on to the purpose of this meeting. The purpose of this special meeting is to discuss previous presentations and pertinent documentation, design and installation specifics by Verizon representatives pertaining to wireless antenna poles and light fixtures on the boardwalk. Less formally, I'd like to rephrase that. This conversation today is to discuss light pole design and wireless installations on the boardwalk. We know from past conversations at meetings that, and from reports and letters from the Boardwalk Committee, Environment Committee, that the interests expressed in this topic revolve around dark skies or light pollution, light pole design, antenna design with respect to the casting of shadows from the lighting, and antenna design in terms of the less visible, the better. So we will touch on all those today, hopefully. We have, I think, a complete lengthy meeting for you, if you will, with a lot of background information, which I believe will be very helpful to everybody. I would like to reiterate some comments, exact same comments I made at the last meeting. I think it's very important to our conversation today. And that is that the Boardwalk and Beach Committee that I chaired up until I became mayor did not ask to have a say-so in the design of the antennas. We were somewhat willing to just be informed, and I think maybe we did give a nod to just using the design that was there. I can't remember, truthfully. Maybe Kevin can shed some light on that when we get to Kevin's report. But I will say that even though we didn't ask for it, there is a new dynamic today with the Boardwalk and Beach Committee, and that new dynamic is a presentation on dark skies to not only the Boardwalk and Beach Committee, but also to the commissioners and to the Environment Committee. Also the new dynamic is we have a new committee chair for the Beach and Boardwalk Committee and an energized Boardwalk and Beach membership. That now the committee desires design input, and that's very understandable. It presents a few problems, though. Lots of time has already been devoted to the design of this. I'd like you all to be very attentive when Kevin gives his report as to the time frame of when all this started and where we are today, and we'll get to what the expectations are for Verizon moving forward at some point. There's also a problem that by allowing citizen and committee input at this late stage, that we don't know what the impact is on Verizon installing antennas on the new light poles by their summer deadline. Now understand, I'm all for public input, absolutely, but we still need to see what is the impact of slowing this process down a little bit. The other problem we've had that I articulated at the last meeting is that we've had some citizen have had conversations with the Verizon rep that doesn't mirror the city conversations with the same Verizon representative. Thus that's led us to having a special meeting today so that the meeting could be properly noticed and so all the stakeholders can be in the same room and we can hold a conversation and better educate ourselves on the history of being approached to install wireless antennas on the boardwalk to serve the beach, boardwalk, and other areas. Today's meeting is organized as follows. There'll be a presentation on light pole and wireless design of other boardwalk towns and in Rehoboth Beach to provide background information, and I will be doing that. Then we'll go to Kevin Williams, and he will advise us of the design parameters from the start of this project to today, and also advise us of the history of wireless installations to date and permit requests to date for wireless installations on the boardwalk, both AT&T and Verizon. He'll show a progression, I hope he'll show a progression of Verizon light poles and wireless antenna designs from the beginning to where we are now. And then, of course, anything else he wants to share.
Oh, boy.
I'm loading him up. I'm loading him up. The next thing we'll do is give the floor to Verizon and let them say anything they want, and then we'll go to questions and answers or comments from the commissioners and then from the public. And after public comment, we'll hopefully conclude with conversation on the path forward for installation of wireless antenna on light poles on the boardwalk. And I hope that that will be satisfying to everybody. With that, I'm going to share the screen. I'm going to try to share the screen. I understand while I'm doing this presentation for the commissioners whose pictures are on the screen, if you have a comment, you're going to need to either raise your hand or preferably speak up, because I cannot see all the commissioners at one time on the screen. So thank you very much. With that, I want to share with you real quick what my background is on this. I like to share as much as I can my knowledge with you all, and that's why I devised this slideshow today. If you recall, I was chair of the original Boardwalk Committee and did a lot of design and consultation for the original Boardwalk total replacement back in 29 in 2010. And with that, that included selection of the light poles and design of light poles and all that stuff. So I have a little background there. I'd also like to share with you that in preparations for Boardwalk design back then, Commissioner, actually, I think it was Citizen Jay Legree and I, 15 years ago, went to 20 Boardwalk towns in New Jersey and took a ton of photographs to evaluate and analyze what kind of amenities they had there. And of those, you'll see some of the light poles and wireless poles there. We also went back a few years ago, so there was 10 years removed to see what the differences were. This is Wildwood, New Jersey. As you can see, this is on their boardwalk, and this is a conglomeration. It's a daggone mess of stuff. Yeah, really. This is Atlantic City, and they've got an internet center here. You can see that it actually has wording here that says charging station, where you can plug in and charge your phone. There's an equipment box here to hide some of the equipment. I'm not sure if there's an antenna here or not, whether it's just decorative, but there is an antenna on the top here. Here's another also on Atlantic City. It's kind of interesting because it has a different type of antenna here with a can type antenna on the top. But again, notice the ancillary equipment that goes with this. There's some kind of equipment box, there's an electrical disconnect, and there's an electric meter. What these two things are over here, I have no clue. This is en route, as you can see. This is just one that caught my attention. It has a street light pole with, again, an antenna at the top, and it's got an equipment box at the bottom with a disconnect and an electric meter co-located with it. This is Ocean City, Maryland. They have a fairly simple kind of light fixture. You can see that they're somewhat nice and clean looking. But I will call your attention to what's highlighted there, and those are their wireless connections. I don't know who the vendor is, but you can see the size comparison. There's almost like a 55-gallon drum at the base, and then a much wider pole and antenna at the top. You can see from the beach how kind of big and bulky it looks. This is Bethany Beach. They used to have a globe, I think, like we did, and they changed to these. I'm not sure they're dark sky compliant, but they do stop the lights from going above. I'm not sure what that white thing is there. This was taken 10 years ago. I will say that 8:30 last night, I had this wild idea, and I drove down to Bethany Beach, got there by 9 o'clock to take a look at their boardwalk in the dark, and I've got some other slides later I'll share with you. But right now, what I thought was interesting is that Bethany Beach has no wireless antenna on the boardwalk at all, zero. Instead, they have wireless antenna on the west side of the boardwalk, usually at the street ends or in the bottom of the parking lot. And later we'll get Verizon to explain to us what the type of antenna is at the top. I think I've been told this is 4G and that the array is 5G, but we'll get them to clarify that for us later. And of course, here's an equipment box, and then down below is an electric meter, I believe. I believe these are indeed Verizon units there. So again, we'll ascertain that later. In Rehoboth Beach, of course, you're familiar with some on Rehoboth Avenue. These are actually an AT&T. You can see that the front one here is actually totally fabricated. It's a metal pole. It's made to mimic all our other ones. It's got the big antenna at the top, an equipment box below, and an electric meter somewhere down below. This is a Verizon setup here. This is over near the Dinner Bell Inn. What's the new name of the Dinner Bell Inn? Belmore Inn, Christian Street and 2nd Street there. You can see here that, again, they have equipment box, disconnect, and I believe it's a disconnect, and a electric meter on there, as well as 2 sets of antennas on the top, a can type and an array there. Over on the corner of Philadelphia and King Charles, there's a similar setup, but interesting, there's no big equipment box, but they do have these other 2, there's a meter that's going to go there, and then of course a single type of array at the top. This is an installation on the southwest corner of Wilmington and First. It's an installation by AT&T. It's got an equipment box, a disconnect there. I don't know where the meter is. And then at the top, you can see an antenna. This is a setup also by AT&T. I call it an antenna on the boardwalk because it's at our Delaware Avenue restroom facility. They actually were going to originally install it on top of the flagpole, and instead came up with this design, a little more stealth to hide it, inside a custom cupola that they built there, and you can see the can antennas there. What I find interesting here in this installation is that, again, here's their equipment box, a disconnect, and an electric meter. What I find interesting is that it is not co-located exactly underneath the antenna, that there is some distance removed there. Of course, now we come to our boardwalk with the 4 recreational lights there. One of them, light number 2, I call it, has an antenna at the top, has an equipment box. And what's interesting with this installation is that the electric meter is on a bank over here at the end of the street, so that it is not co-located exactly with the antenna. This is one of the days, probably back in 2010, early 2010, when the boardwalk was almost finished. And you can see the status of it there. And I guess what I'm calling to note is how clean the row of lights are there. They're unadorned. They don't have attachments on them yet. And yet the next thing that happened is we started putting our own security lights, and of course there's sacrifices we have to make for safety, and that's one of them. And so we've sacrificed aesthetics a little bit, in my opinion. But again, there's a great need for that. And they're not every pole, they're every what, fourth pole, third pole, some,
Try to maintain the end of the streets as much as possible.
close to the end of the street, Max Hamby says. So, that could be every second or third pole, depends where it is. Of course, here's the unadorned pole and light fixture. What I wanted to show you there is this globe, and tell you that on the original Boardwalk committee, we had intended all along to put dark sky compliant globes from the beginning. And I've chaired that committee, and I have absolutely no clue why that did not happen, but it did. And unfortunately, with the white or almost clear globes, they have this glow about them, and so they're definitely not dark sky compliant. At the bottom, there's a base. The reason I'm showing you this is because I wanted to show you how all the wires come up through the bottom of it. I have heard that with this installation, the cabling will likely be external and go up somewhere in this direction here because as you'll see, there's not much space down there. Underneath, there's a fabricated metal box and there's no room. Unless any of those conduits are already empty, which I don't recall, then there's really no opportunity to add any conduit or wiring and come up underneath. And as you can see, there's some of the complexity of wiring for one of our boardwalk poles. Same thing here. So what I wanted to show you here was I was up in Dover at an industrial park up there, and this was in the twilight and the light was just coming on. It hadn't come to full intensity yet, but it can show you what I believe would be a dark sky compliant light fixture. I do want to share with you that, well, why can't we retrofit those globes to become dark sky compliant? Well, we tried to do that way back when. We tried to put some baffles there. These are some baffles that shine the light down rather than up. We even put shields. You can see a shield here. Can you see the mouse? Mm-hmm. Okay. We even put a shield inside to try to shield it from going in residential properties and everything. And that did not work very well. So we had a different type of baffle that slips inside the globe. It's this kind of thing, and it shines the light down. We even put a shield there to try to shield it away, and nothing was very effective, including this type of setup here. Putting aluminum on there. And it just didn't seem to work because of the globe itself. The globe always glowed around the entire 360 degrees of the orb, including on top. So that just did not work very well. We got some kind of cap that actually never fit. And of course, this would have been painted black if it had fit, and we had tried it, but it had no success there. I'm nearing the end here, so thank you for your patience. As I mentioned, I went to Bethany Beach last night, and to see their, I don't know that they're dark sky compliant, but they might approach that, or they might be. But I wanted to show you a couple things there. This is their type of globe that you have. You can see it's got a cap on it, so it shines down for the most part. They do have a security light there. We'll get back to this slide later. But what I wanted to show you is just the intensity of a lot of their lighting. This is from an aerial camera. So it's actually taken 15 feet off the ground and gives you a little different perspective than on the ground. And here's also from an aerial camera, 15 feet off the ground, showing you the lights in the background are their beach nourishment that is ongoing. So dismiss those lights there. Back to ours, you can see quite a bit of difference in the intensity of lighting. And I think that's it for me. So Were there any questions on the particular slideshow? We can always go back to slides later if Verizon or anybody has questions. Are there any questions from the commissioners? If not, thank you very much. Then what I would like to do is turn the floor over to Kevin Williams to talk about what he wants to talk about. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. And I have no interest at all in talking about Boardwalk Towers, so could we talk about maybe the football games coming up this weekend? But we will. We'll talk about cell towers on the Boardwalk, kind of from my perspective, when we started working with Verizon and AT&T and others about the cell, coming in of the 5G towers and the like, and just kind of how we got to where we are today from where we started. This is just a kind of a snapshot of, these are all of the permit applications or permitted cell sites we have today in the city, somewhere on the order of probably 28 or 29, depending upon how you count some. Just one thing to touch on, as the mayor went over the original construction of the boardwalk, just wanted to let you know there are actually 5 different types of boardwalk poles on our boardwalk. Most of the differences lie in what's underneath that base cover, whether it's got electrical outlets or not, those kind of things. And then the other difference is down at the south end on the picture on the right, it's a much smaller pedestal, which it sits upon. So it has a smaller base than the ones that sit on the wider part of the boardwalk. Not going to be a part of the discussion today. Just know that as we've been discussing with Verizon, we've been looking at not just the pole, but each of the individual poles, because each one requires maybe a little something different than the others. But the vast majority they're looking at are the larger bases, and a few of them have the actual outlets in it, which are obviously important to us. So just in theory, as they replace one, if it has duplex outlets in the base, then they would replace it with duplex outlets in the base. If it lands on a 2x2 foot concrete platform, it'll match that. If it's on the bigger, wider side, they would match that as well. So this process started for us almost 2 years ago when Verizon came in with some requests for installing 5G antennas. This was back probably spring of 2019, before I think we even had an ordinance for how to process the applications. We had received the FCC law that said, okay, we're going to have to do certain things in order to kind of manage it. So this kind of beat us to the punch on that, but we were in the middle, I think, of working on the ordinance at that time. But these are some of the things they initially requested. A couple options down at the big flagpole in front of the memorial, and then a sample of potential one for a boardwalk application. Kind of reached a strategic pause at this time while we developed, kind of what our code was going to say. Verizon and AT&T and others, actually participated in that committee that was set up to develop that code. And then over the course of the next several months, that code was developed. And about fall of 2019, then Verizon came in with a set of applications for, I think, 18 or so on the boardwalk at various locations, and then came up with some samples and a cut sheet and just some photoshopped images so we could kind of look and see what they were looking at. As you can see, there's a naked pole on the left, and then one of their options showed the box on the pole, and then the antenna at the top, and the cut sheet on the right. And you'll notice one of the things that we were able to work with Verizon over the course of this time was, you can see the original submission doesn't really show you dimensions very well, and it shows multiple boxes on the outside of the pole. So this was about the time that, we briefed the Boardwalk Committee in the fall of 2019 about these applications and what was happening. And we decided at that time that the best thing to do is try to match the existing pole configuration. So in my mind, that's okay, that, you want to match the diameter of the pole as best you can, the height is the same. We wanted to maintain the globes so we could reuse those, so that nice clean look down the boardwalk remained in effect. And a couple of things that we learned from our previous dealings with cell towers on the Rehoboth Avenue and on the volleyball pole is, you know, it doesn't just come with the pole and the antenna. It comes with, as the mayor said, some sort of a control panel box, comes with a plated box that you can come in and plug your RG cables in and do the diagnostics on the antenna or upload new software. And then it also included, you know, electrical disconnect and an electrical meter. So at that point, we decided that it doesn't make necessarily good sense to approve a Boardwalk light pole site by itself. That it needed to be a complete package of how you're going to get power to it, where these other accoutrements were going to be, if not on the pole, and all those other things that just happen to show up, you know, after you approve a pole. In order to get power and fiber to it, all these other things that have to happen. So Verizon came back in with, resubmitted their applications with all of that level of detail. And over the next several months, you know, we kind of worked through that, working through, again, trying to get things as close to where they are now. And Delmarva was obviously involved. We were able to get Delmarva to commit to locating the disconnects and the meters, you know, away from the pole, and they would establish these hubs back on the west side of the boardwalk, and we would power banks of lights off of these hubs to minimize all the stuff that's out on the pole. It requires a whole lot more, you know, conduits under the boardwalk and down the boardwalk, but Verizon was willing to work with us in order to accomplish that. So again, several iterations of this, trying to get the pole smaller, get it narrower to match the existing. And they were very, very helpful in doing that. We got to the point where, and I got a sheet later on more of the detail, but ultimately we got to where the pole was almost the exact size. So the pole they were submitting was a 1/4 inch wider at the top, at the 16-foot level, and a 1/2 inch narrower at the top of the base. So we figured that's pretty darn close, and it still met our needs to have conduits inside, so Max can run security cameras to the ones he needs to run security cameras. It gave them, you know, enough room inside to get their equipment inside or their wiring inside, and it minimized the diameter of the pole. So again, with the intent of looking down that boardwalk, you know, on the morning news when they showed a boardwalk camera, you know, the Boardwalk Plaza camera, and everything is just dress right dress, you know, down the boardwalk. So that's what we're trying to accomplish. And we think we got really close on the pole. So now it became an issue over the boxes and a couple of things that at that time Verizon was saying, you know, needed to hang on the pole. And then we got into, okay, what are the dimensions of that? And we had multiple walkthroughs on the boardwalk with Verizon, with their contractor who was going to do the installations, with their electrician, you know, and all the folks that really had a play in it to develop. And through those meetings, you know, different things go, well, we can make that junction box, you know, we can put that internal to the pole after all and put a trap door on it. Okay, so great, let's do that. How big does this panel box have to be? And if you look at the ones that are out there now on the 5G antennas, they're significantly large, okay? They're probably 24 by 30 or so boxes on the poles, and we knew we really didn't want that. So we worked with Verizon and said, okay, can we get that any smaller? And within the last several months, this fall, you know, came back and said, okay, we can make that, I think it's 14 by 9 by 6 deep. And we can really put that anywhere you need it on the pole. We can bring it lower so it's out of the sight line. You can put it up top, you know, to get it out of the sight line. Or you can leave it, you know, right there at whatever that is, 6, 7 feet it up. So we said, well, I think the best action would be to get that now as low as possible while still allowing access to our belt or our base covers so we can get in and use the outlets and things that are in there. So they went back to the drawing board and came back with that. So this was probably this winter, so December maybe, October, November, December. And it came back, this came in December with kind of the new layout. It's now 16 instead of 18, but now we can see they've you know, reduced a couple of them and got a better handle on the position and how they're going to power them with Delmarva and get fiber to them. So a little bit of movement around of a couple of them. And they came in, so here's the latest and greatest on the design. So again, just a couple of things on this that you probably can't read, but again, it talks to the height, talks to the width and the dimensions and what goes inside the pole versus what gets hung on the outside. It still doesn't address the attachments. This schematic on this side does show the new configuration with just the kind of the panel box on the outside, all the conduits and everything coming up from the sand on the front side. And then this is a Photoshop schematic of what the new kind of detail would look like with a naked pole on the left, and then there's the same pole with the antenna array at the top, and you can kind of see that much smaller box on the pole, and I would think it'd probably go actually a little lower than that, but that's kind of the idea. And then there it is from the beach. You kind of see that same look from the beach, naked pole, and then from the beach with the antenna array. And that's where we sit today on January 22nd.
What I'd like to do is, again, we'll get to the public later. What I'd like to do is see if the commissioners have any questions specific to Kevin's report so far, because again, we're going to have a broader question and answer session later, but specific to what he's presented so far. Do you have any questions, Commissioner Jay Legree? You're muted.
Muted, Jay.
Kevin, this is the first time I have heard anything about the history of the negotiations that you have been having with Verizon or any other telecommunications company, nor have my committee, the Boardwalk committee, heard any of this history. It would have been so helpful. And if you recall, on the 3rd of September, I wrote you an email, and I can furnish you another copy, that asked for this very type of information that you're giving now. The first time any of the Boardwalk committee heard about the plan of the poles on the boardwalk was the 4 December issue of the Cape Gazette. It would have been so much more helpful had we had all of this information well beforehand. We could have agreed, we could have understood, we could have had a lot better background. Committee members have been going back and researching the minutes of the previous meetings when you presented or when we had discussions, and we can find nothing that resembles what you have given us today. I'm so grateful for you to have presented this information now. It is so meaningful and helpful. I just wish we could have had it a year ago. And I welcome further discussion. But I think I represent the members of the Boardwalk committee. Many of them probably all of them are listening. They've been doing research. They've been researching the literature, trying to come up with alternatives and ways that we can go forward with this and still be dark sky compliant. I have a lot more to say, but I bet other people can say it much better than I. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner, and we appreciate you hearing your perspective there, and I think it is a lesson learned, so I appreciate you speaking up. Again, we're going to have Verizon speak as well as Q&A, so I'd like your questions reserved for that time if it's appropriate. If you have anything right now specific to Kevin's presentation, then please bring it forward. Commissioner Gossett?
Yeah, just a quick question. It may be addressed later, but the current design as specced on the cut sheets, are the cabling exterior or interior to the poles for the added antennas?
Commissioner, the cables for the new antennas are internal to the pole.
On all 16 poles?
That's correct.
Thank you.
But for where they enter the pole, correct? Kevin? Where they enter the pole is on the exterior. They're not coming up from underneath.
Well, I think the intent is they come in under the bell housing. So if it comes up and then in for that base cover is what the last thing Verizon has.
So not as bad as the drawing that I showed.
No, not like you had the cable on.
Okay, very good, very good.
So
Commissioner Sarnowski?
I'm sorry, just a
I'm
follow-up.
sorry, Commissioner, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Just for follow-up then, will there be any cabling exposed on the pole itself?
No.
And anywhere?
Not at this point that
Okay,
I'm
thank
aware
you.
of. Yeah,
Thank you.
nothing for the antenna, and I think all our cables for the cameras are internal, so.
Thank you.
Other than where it penetrates from inside to outside. Correct. All right. Anything else, Commissioner Gossett?
No, thank
Thank you very much. Commissioner Sarnowski?
Kevin, thank you so much for all of the work you've done. You clearly have done a lot over the past couple of years on this, and a good job, I think. In the past 2 years, with any discussion with AT&T or Verizon or any of the contractors, did you ever consider having? I think there's been in other cities instances, and the Beach and Boardwalk Committee may have proposed a few things where the light fixture is below the antenna. Was that ever, I guess, discussed as an option on our poles? My guess is probably not because of how they're designed, but.
That's correct, Commissioner. If you look at one of the very early submissions they had, it showed kind of a very narrow kind of arm that came off the top of the pole and showed the light fixture maybe 8 to 10 to 12 inches off the pole, and then you still had the antenna array at the top. But the gooseneck and then the light fixture, a completely different look than the existing poles on the boardwalk. And there is not a physical way to attach the antenna above the existing globe. So they couldn't do it that way. You had to relocate the light off of the pole to be able to get the antenna at the top. So there was some thought about it very early on, but it didn't meet with the intent of trying to match what the existing was.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Gay?
Yeah, my comment, and I think mostly it'll be for later, not so much a question for Kevin, but that last discussion you just had zeroes in exactly on my concern, and that is that that the light, the placement of the antenna below the light sort of changes everything. And what I heard was in the presentation that there were a number of various experts involved in design along the way. Electrical engineers and whatnot, when Kevin was showing those schematics. And so one question I would have is, was there ever a lighting designer? Because that really has, I mean, that's why we're here. I think is not just the dark skies has brought the issue to the fore, but we've got a real problem with how the light has been changed as a result of that placement. So that's actually my number one concern. I appreciate having that background.
Okay, yeah, Commissioner, yeah, good thought. Initially, we looked at the impact from the cameras, right? There's a camera now on many poles above the light, and I think the mayor showed 1 or 2 of those, and the amount of shadow, that it shows on the boardwalk. In that case, it's pretty negligible. Now, I know the antennas are going to be a little bit larger, probably, depending upon where they're positioned on the pole, because I think these antennae have to be they're directional, so they're angled at a specific angle to maximize. So depending upon where they're set and how they're angled, could in fact potentially cast a shadow on the boardwalk as much or more than what the existing cameras do. I think we actually have a guy from Illuminations who does lighting fixtures we have consulted with over the time about how much and what an impact that would be. And I think later on, maybe he'll probably tell you his recommendation or his position on the impact of those antennas underneath the light. So if you want to do that now, we could, or if you want to wait till
I'd like to do that after Verizon has their opportunity.
Sure, but yeah.
And during Q&A, I think that's appropriate time to bring up that whole topic. Thank you, Susan. Anything else?
That's it.
I'm getting blinded here. Commissioner Byrne?
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. And Mayor and Kevin, thanks to each of you for your presentations. I think you've brought a lot of good information. to kick off this important discussion. And this may be for later in the discussion, although it'd be interesting to hear from Kevin right now. I was intrigued, Mayor, by your photo and your description of what Bethany Beach has done and not done. I think, if I understood correctly, you said that they have no antennas currently on the boardwalk, that they put them on a pole off of the boardwalk. And I think, the fact that it sounds like a very deliberatively, considered alternatives. I also like the antenna that's on top of the restroom, because that's so well hidden, as opposed to being out on the beach and interfering with the light and so on. So where are we at with considering some of these alternatives for our boardwalk?
Well, let me try to respond to test my memory. When I was a commissioner last, so that would have been, what, a year and a half to 2 years ago, this wireless ordinance, Glenn, I think, came in front of us at that time. At that time, I believe it was myself that brought up that very thing. What are the alternatives? My position was that the antenna should be restricted to the west side of the boardwalk, leaving that clean, pristine line of unadulterated light poles, if you will. And unfortunately, I think the vote was 6-1 to supersede that and allow antenna to be installed on the east side of the boardwalk. So I think that ship has sailed. And I don't know that we, obviously at this point, that would be an entire reset that I'm not sure is appropriate at this time.
Mayor, let me just say that.
Yeah, I mean, I recall that conversation. Part of the discussion at that time, I believe that the utility providers made a representation that they needed the height of the poles and that side of the boardwalk to be able to get coverage to the beach. But I remember the discussion about the east side or the west side of the boardwalk, and that you at that time as a commissioner were not enthused about putting things on the poles.
So again, I voted no, but we're in the present now, and we have to figure out how to move forward. So,
well, Mayor, thank you for that reminder. I was probably one of those 6, but with that said, I think we go forward. We live and we learn, and if we can't learn from where we've been and understand new information, I'm never one to say that ship has totally sailed, that we can't take a step back and say we have now better information, we have new information, clearer thinking, and maybe we made a mistake. Maybe we didn't have enough information at that point. So I think we have to continue to look at alternatives in terms of what is best for our city, for our residents, our businesses, and our visitors, not what is best for the large corporations going forward.
Thank you, Dick. I've changed my mind. I think I would like to address the question posed earlier about what is the impact of an antenna being underneath the light globe. Now, I've got Commissioner Gossett and Pat Paluzzi. Do you want to say something first, or can we address the shadow topic first? Commissioner Gossett?
Yes, thank you. Just to kind of back up a little bit to the discussion of reconfirmation or changing the lighting, talking about a teardrop or cobra head lighting. I'm just curious, Mr. Williams, in your discussions early on there, that configuration that you speak of antenna above the light and a cobra arm or teardrop light, that's the exact configuration that we have on Rehoboth Avenue currently. And I didn't know if there was a discussion of that being applied, retrofitting the boardwalk lights to appear like they do on Rehoboth Avenue.
Yes, Commissioner. No, we did not entertain going to a different fixture because our intention all along was try to match the existing. So at that point, we weren't interested in replacing all 55 poles on the boardwalk to get a new look on the boardwalk. We were just trying to focus on making them look like the ones that were already there, the other 40 or so.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Cluzy, do you want to say something before we go to the shadow topic?
Yes, just quickly. I agree with Commissioner Byrne. I mean, if in fact, as you mentioned, Mayor, the ship has sailed, I want to know for sure that that is in fact true, that the ship has sailed, that we cannot go back. And with that question, I have another question, and that is co-location of antennas. In other words, the AT&T current antennas, is there a possibility of co-locating the Verizon antenna, within some reasonable space? So that's, for example, on top of the, I believe, the restroom. Would it be possible to the AT&T? That's my question. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, we'll address both questions. Number one is, has the ship sailed? In my opinion, it has. Absolutely, we can stop them, but there's ramifications. We won't get 5G this year. Verizon's going to be mad at us. How mad they get is to be determined. But I think they all acted. The city and Verizon partnered in this. They both acted in good faith together to get to this point. And again, it's this new dynamic of dark skies and the Boardwalk Committee with a different chair that have led to this. In retrospect, it would have been wonderful if we'd started this conversation a year ago, and then we might have had a different outcome. So again, in my opinion, I believe the ship has sailed on this. Kevin, do you want to address the existing design that's in front of us for Verizon, and how would that impact other vendors in the future coming forward?
Thank you, Barry. Yep. From our discussions a year and a half, 2 years ago with the two major providers, both were very willing to tailor their designs to whatever we came up with. So good old Verizon stepped up to the plate first and started coming in and talking, and we kind of have been working toward that design. AT&T some time ago has agreed that whatever we decide as long as it's commercially available, they will be more than happy to match then the existing. Now, the piece of matching what's there now is kind of a different animal, because what AT&T really has constructed there are 5G, 4G, and it's a different animal, as I've come to learn. The big boxes that you see on the poles in town are two poles. If you look back to the mayor's picture one on Christian, one on Philadelphia, the one on Christian has the 4G antenna on the top, the 5G array on the side. It has both the 5G smaller box disconnect, and it also has the larger 4G box. And if you look over on Philadelphia, where it just has the 5G array, it only has the smaller accoutrements. You can't really match what had already been done under the 4G regime. Now, looking at co-location, that sounds great in the, I guess, the regulation or law that was passed that, we encourage co-location. But I think we've come to find out over the past several years that really doesn't mean co-locating of an AT&T array and controls and a Verizon array and controls. It really means try to find existing other utility poles, like a Delmarva pole or another pole for whatever reason, and to tie to that. We have not had any success from the engineers telling us that they could be really co-located, the two different antenna array located on the same pole. It may be engineering possible, but we certainly couldn't get to that point with our negotiations with either AT&T or Verizon. And I'm sure there's sound engineering reasons that somebody will correct me on, but that's kind of where we ended up.
Okay.
Mayor, I just wanted to add to that, and also have the commissioners understand that in this, as you've heard, in this 18-month to 2-year process, we have been in conversations, discussions, conferences with both Verizon and AT&T. When Verizon first came to to the city almost, maybe even longer than 2 years ago. And I mentioned this at several commissioners' meetings and advising the commissioners what was occurring at that time, of trying to get, approaching Verizon with coming up with the 50-plus poles to be uniform, because we knew that somewhere down the line, another utility would want to come in and erect their own. So we talked to Verizon and AT&T about that, and AT&T did, of course, with what Kevin was referring to with the 4G versus the 5G. They both, Verizon and AT&T, said that, of course, they would use the same manufacturer and design their poles to match whatever is there. I think because of some of the reason here, because of the transition in commissioners, and Mayor Mills, you know, when you were a commissioner, aesthetics extremely important. It still is extremely important. We went, you know, above and beyond, in my estimation, to make sure those aesthetics were going to not only please you, but all of the commissioners. So, and we had full cooperation from Verizon. So this obviously didn't just start yesterday. Thank you.
Thank you. So, again, I want to get to impact of shadows, but Jay, do you have something you'd like to add before that? Unmute yourself.
Yeah, I was just going to comment that it would have been great if Commissioner Caluzzi, Gossett, Byrne, if we could have had this discussion 2 years ago, because I'm hearing some great suggestions from Chernowski and Gay and people who I wish we could have had this discussion 2 years ago, but I wasn't a commissioner then, so all I would have been as a listener. But no, I have no comments.
Thank you. Well, you know, we're in the here and now, and that's why we're conducting this meeting. So thank you. Commissioner Chernowski?
Yes, Mayor. You know, we did a year and a half ago start this discussion, and I think what the city manager just alluded to, and what Kevin's been doing all this time, has been about the design standards and the polls. And when Commissioner Gay and I first came into office, one of the first things that was on the slate was the design manual and the ordinance which we passed. And we talked about the aesthetics, the poles, utilizing things that are already there rather than erecting new poles. And if they do erect new poles, it matches what we have and the fabrication of those. What we never talked about in those discussions, and isn't a part of the design manual at all, is lighting. We just didn't think about it. And it's the conversation that just happened with Dark Skies that brought lighting on our radar. You know, it is going to cast a shadow. To what degree, I don't know, but I think we need to hear from a lighting expert on the impact it's going to have, and then what some solutions are to mitigate that, and if there's time to implement that or not in the near future. So I did just email everyone the design manual in case you don't already have it or it wasn't on your radar.
I want to share the screen. Give me a minute. I'd like to pull something up. Again, one of my desires last night, we're going to address the questions that came up in the Environment Committee report as well as the Boardwalk and Beach report, and that was the question of by locating an external antenna immediately below the globe, what kind of shadow will be cast? So let's go ahead and talk about that, because that's, Verizon may have an input on that, but I think it's more for us to discuss possibly. When I went to Bethany Beach, again, they've got a dark sky, or apparently a dark sky compliant globe. What I wanted to see while I was down there is what kind of shadows are cast by any thing that's affixed to the boardwalk light pole. The only thing I could find was a security camera, as you can see up here. There's actually appears to be the same exact size of what we have on our boardwalk. And what I found, this is hard to convey in a photograph, obviously, but there is a shadow down there. Is it terrible? Absolutely not. In fact, if Kevin, can you share your screen a minute and go back to your presentation? I think it's your second slide. I'd like to show you something.
Which slide you look for?
It is one that has, there's two pictures there, the boardwalk in the south, and it's got a definitive shadow from people and stuff on there.
Sure.
What I wanted to show you is the slide on the right. See how absolutely distinct those shadows are? I wanted to compare those, and you got them right there. So let's put mine back on. You want to take his off? I will go back on. Anyhow, I wouldn't take it for what it is. It's a nighttime picture on a cell phone. It is taken on a cell phone with a Verizon account. If that means anything. And again, there is a shadow at the base of it there. Now, this is not a good representation. Kind of gives me an idea that maybe we could live with it, or at least try it, considering that one single security lamp is certainly not the same as an array of antenna all the way around it, you know. But then when I came to Rehoboth Beach, I did the same thing. And you can see at the bottom of the very first light, there's a little shadow. I mean, it kind of looks like dirt, but it is a shadow. Whereas the next door light, it's not. So again, there's a shadow there again on the left light, but it's not a good example at all. It was almost not worth showing, but I wanted to help start the conversation in this. Now, Kevin, you have talked with a consultant. Is he available, or?
Should be on the call now.
Yeah, is Tom from Illuminations available?
Tom, are you there?
I am, thank you.
Hi, Tom. Would you explain who you are, with what company, and
Sure.
And maybe you can give us some idea about how to allay our concerns about shadows cast by such antenna on the boardwalk.
Absolutely. So I work for a company called Illuminations. We're a manufacturer's sales representative. And we represent various, excuse me, lighting manufacturers. We were fortunate enough to be involved with you on this original project, a few years ago. So the impact of the shadows, we really don't know at this point, because we don't know how, where those boxes are going to be placed in conjunction to how far below the fixture is. So what I would like to do is, we're working on getting a fixture shown to you folks for the dark sky post top fixture, similar to what you have. one of our manufacturers is in the development stages of making that, what we call an acorn style globe on top that is dark sky compliant. So that's in the process right now. I'm not sure exactly when they're going to be done with that. We do have another version of it, which I sent a picture of it to Kevin yesterday. That is a dark sky. It kind of simulates that style fixture that you have now, a little bit different. It's got a metal top to it, and the light, it's an LED light source. The LED light source is in the top portion of the fixture, shining down, as opposed to being in a socket in a vertical mount. This is a horizontal mount with the LED lamps. So what I think we should do to put everybody's mind at ease, or develop new issues, is to get a sample and do a mock-up of this on the boardwalk with the antennas in place.
Okay, thank you, Tom. I think it's important to note, Kevin, correct me if I'm wrong, but the type of light fixture is really not relevant to Verizon conversation. In that the specs right now show that what Verizon is to remove the globe and reinstall it on the new thing. So what that tells me is if we can make it happen for this session and convert to dark sky, then that's the best scenario. But if we can't, we need more time, then it's something that the city can do in the future, because it utilizes the same pole. And either way, the cost is borne by the city, correct?
Mayor, that's correct. In all of our dealings to date with Verizon, it's been to reuse the existing globe. So, the dark skies thing came up here very recently, was not part of the equation, for the last 18 months or so. So, yeah, and just to go back to what Tom had said about the fixture he provided the other day, it looks nothing similar to the globes that are out there now. So unless, the intent was to replace all 55, then it would definitely look a lot worse than just having the antenna out there, for sure.
Commissioner Legree?
Does any of this involve replacing the poles?
For the lighting fixtures,
yeah,
it doesn't need to. But.
So just going back to the upgrade, the additional 5G antenna, yes, it does necessitate the removal of the pole.
Because the new poles are bigger diameter at the top, bigger diameter at the bottom to accommodate internal conduit and wiring for the Verizon antenna.
As well as ours for the security cameras.
Right.
Are they still working under the assumption that they want to keep the new, and I assume they're going to be composite Watley poles, but is there any discussion that this perhaps is not in our best interest to try to keep it as small and skinny as possible? And I could tell you why I'm asking that question, but is that in the discussion?
Commissioner, that has not been in the discussion to date. We've been driving them toward this match the existing. Obviously, 18 months ago when I briefed the committee and we said, okay, do we want to look like Ocean City and put big barrels with different lights up and antennas on them, or do we want to try to match? Everything was, let's try to match the existing. So for 18 months, we've been driving them to smaller poles, smaller boxes, get stuff off the pole, and just get the bare minimum that is required to provide us with the 5G capability, that we want and need.
Well, I'm sure my committee members are pulling their hair out right now because they don't remember that conversation, but it would have been a great conversation to have with the Board of Commissioners. Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you. Any more questions for Tom? Tom, we appreciate you being online.
Mayor, if I could just make a comment, as Commissioner Legree just said, it would have been great, to discuss with the Board of Commissioners. It was discussed with the Board of Commissioners, and everything that that Sharon and Kevin have been doing the past 18 months is at the direction of the commissioners to minimize the size and maintain the look of the poles. I just want to
Thank
be
you.
clear on that.
Thank you, Commissioner. If there's no more questions from the mayor and commissioners, Kevin, is it all right? We'll turn it over to Verizon. I would like to share with Verizon that you know, anything you can contribute as much or as little as you want is fine. I do want to indicate that a list of some questions that have come up at the last commissioners meeting, as well as Boardwalk and Environment Committee report. And that was maybe a discussion or let us know what is the difference for antenna types for 4G and 5G. We keep hearing about a cantenna and antenna arrays. So what are those differences? What is the options for antennas for 5G? What options do we have for stealth or hidden antennas? Can 5G be located in the interior cavity of the light pole so that it's totally hidden? If so, what size outside diameter light pole is required to hide the antenna, wiring, and any equipment on the interior of the pole? How small can you design a light pole that will be able to contain the electrical equipment? Would a larger base allow for hiding some of the wires and equipment? Does it make a difference to Verizon to install the antenna below or above the light fixture, and hit on co-location comments if you like. Again, those were generated by previous meetings, so I thought maybe some of your conversation would cover some of those. So Bonnie, do you want to let us know who's going to speak, and we'll be able to push their button and let them talk.
Bonnie, can you hear us?
Bonnie, there you go.
There we go. Sorry about that. I'm going to do that. So let me just introduce quickly everybody that I have on from Verizon here. And if you could unmute them all, that would be helpful, because there are a lot of different questions, and each one actually bring in a different person here. So with me is Tara Gosnell. Tara is the project manager. Mark Lynch from our construction, Tony Agigio from the real estate group. We also have on Bill Willis, who's with Swartley Engineering. He's our electrician that's been working on this project, and Joe Filipowski from French and Perillo, and he's an engineer that's been working on this in the city as well. So first, I'm Bonnie Metz, Director of State and Local Government Affairs here for Verizon in Delaware. I've been here in front of you many times over the last couple years, actually probably 3. We started our discussions with the city back in 2017 in June, trying to bring small cells to the municipality. And so we're here today, happy to say that we have gotten some of them up this year. So we appreciate that. But we're anxious to move forward with these Boardwalk nodes, as you might imagine at this point. So we do appreciate the opportunity to be here and to continue to work together with the city, really to improve the wireless service for your residents, businesses, and visitors. That's a big thing for you all, and we're hoping that we can move forward and that we have gotten some of our new technology up. But Rehoboth will be one of the first cities in the entire state to have this new technology. So we look forward to continuing to work with you. As Kevin said, we started working on these Boardwalk nodes over a year, and I believe a half ago. And I think you've heard the history of it. At this point, we filed our applications for these nodes in August. I believe it was early August last summer. And the time frame that we're dealing with now, where the city, is its review and decision on those applications, both of that is imposed under federal law, and the city's own ordinances has long since expired. That was a 60-day approval time, and we're now up to 5 months, I see. And as Kevin stated, we have nevertheless, despite that fact, continued to try to work in good faith with the city in the hopes of achieving those approved applications. So, there's been extensive dialogue, as you've heard, and a number of changes that we've made over the course of the last year, including going back to Belmont to have them manufacture the poles so that it could look as close to the poles that you have currently, which was the direction that we were given. And at that point, as I know, the dark skies discussion was not in the works. And so we even, were able to get Belmont to make the poles so that the existing globe could go right on there. So, at this point, we really need to move forward with the current pole design. The light that goes on the top of it, does not have the same turnaround time as the manufacturing of the poles does. We are set now with a 12 to 16 week manufacturing time. So it's imperative that we get these poles approved, the Boardwalk notes approved, so that we can begin the manufacturing process. Because all along the goal was to make sure that we could get these poles up and in service so that we can meet the summer months when you guys, obviously you have great demands. Our network has great demands, especially during the summer season. In the past, we've had to use temporary facilities to accommodate that. So this is very important to us. And if we're not able to do that, and move forward with the design as it stands, at least for the pole, it's really going to materially inhibit our ability to provide service this summer in the city. So that's my kind of statement. I'm happy to take questions on that, or happy to move into some of the questions, I guess. But I wanted to say at the outset, the discussion of, what we can do, as you've seen, Mayor, with the pictures that you've shown, we can do a lot. We can put stealth around the 5G antennas. We can build things into the poles as we've done. If we put the antennas inside or at the top, it's going to have ramifications. It's going to change the look of the consistency down the boardwalk, as you've all discussed. So there are lots of things that we could do, but what we're faced with now is, permits that have been pending under the current ordinance and design manual since August. And at this point, there is no way we will be able to provide service this summer if we don't move forward with the current pole design.
Thank you, Bonnie. One of the things that I want to make sure we understand is that you mentioned that the globe could be, the decision on the globe could be deferred a little bit and not interfere with your timeline. So we hear that. So again, at the end of this conversation today, I'm hoping that we can come on a path forward for installation of wireless antennas and give you all and Kevin more direction. Maybe rather than asking you to blindly answer questions that I stated earlier, maybe we should go to Q&A so that the commissioners can target questions for you, if you don't mind, and then we'll go to the public. Commissioner Legree?
Bonnie, I want to thank you profusely for the work that you folks have been doing trying to accommodate us. None of us knew the sweeping, enthusiastic advocacy of dark sky. So that is an overriding thing also. But is it too late to incorporate a reinforcement area for the flange should we decide to put goosenecks on the outside of our poles and go ahead and leave the array in the place that they are now? That would allow us to move our light out over the boardwalk and probably lower, and also allow us to put a shade over the top. Has that ship sailed?
We had a discussion with Illuminations, and I don't know if Tom is still on. We had this discussion, and it was my understanding, although he may want to weigh in on this, that I don't think it is too late for that, because I think you can attach something to the top of the pole, but I don't know if Tom's on and he can address that.
And yeah, thanks, Tom. And also lower the gooseneck down towards where it's below the lot, where it's below the antenna array. Thank you.
Oh.
Well,
So I don't know.
Let me, go ahead, Bonnie.
I don't know that you can lower it would, I believe, and I'll ask my construction or real estate to jump in here. I don't believe you can move it below the antenna at this point without changing the entire design of the pole.
Thank you, Bonnie.
Jay, I will convey to you that when I worked on the original Boardwalk design, there was a science to designing the light poles, and especially the light fixture. We hired a lighting designer that mapped the entirety of the Boardwalk and determined, based on a light fixture that was selected or desired, what the spacing is between the light poles. What is the height of the light pole? What's the intensity and wattage of the light pole? What kind of lens on the light pole? There's all kinds of things that have to go in there. And so if you were to change the light fixture drastically, especially by putting it on a yard arm and lowering it, I think we would need to have that lighting designer come in and re-engineer everything. And it's liable to show that there is not enough light lumens in between the lights in different areas, such as on the narrow south end of the Boardwalk. So I think we have to be cautious with that kind of thing.
I agree totally, Stan. I totally agree with that.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Caluzzi?
Yes, thank you. And I thank you, Bonnie, and your team for all the work you've been doing. And sorry, this is taking so long, but I just have a question for you. I thought I heard you say that at this stage, you really could not redesign the pole in any fashion at all we would not be able to provide service this summer if that were the case. Did I hear that correctly?
Yes.
So it seems to me that we are mainly now talking about dark skies, because it appears that we're going to be moving forward with these poles today. So I think that there's probably no reason to have any other discussion about items on the pole, or the pole itself, I should say. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other commissioners have questions or comments for Verizon before we move on to the public session?
Yeah, Mayor.
Yes, sir,
Thank
Commissioner.
You. Yeah, just to clarify what Commissioner Caluzzi brought up, because I just want to make sure I understand it, and maybe others need to too. You said that we may not be able to have service this summer. That, I assume that means that we cannot go from 4G to 5G for summer of 2021. Is that?
So that's correct, but at the same time, you know that people are beginning to use the 5G phones. They're out there now. So, you know, people that are going to be coming to visit this summer are going to be on 5G. That takes then capacity off of the 4G network, right? So it actually makes the 4G network and those people that are using that, you know, to work better as well. So just the 5G, it's not just providing the 5G, it's actually helping the 4G network as well, which is something that, you know, over the past couple of years, we've obviously been working on to try to, you know, increase capacity for that. With new macros, actually, we did a few of those. And then some of those poles that we put up actually have 4G as well. But the whole design has been done so that, you know, we can provide 5G and 4G and serve our customers, you know, and that they can have robust service throughout the city, no matter what they're on, 4G or 5G.
Thanks, Bonnie and team. I think, I mean, I understand your interest, Verizon's interest in moving us ahead as quickly as you can. I think as elected officials here, we have a bigger picture to consider, and that is, you know, how critically important is it that we have 5G summer 2021, as opposed to doing a little bit of a pause, reflecting some, taking in the newer information that we have and trying to make meaning of that going forward, knowing that we will have 5G eventually. I don't know, I'm not convinced that it's critically important that we have that summer 2021, as opposed to looking at the bigger picture and a very environmentally sensitive area and considering what all of the alternatives are. And I don't understand what the pros and cons of all of the alternatives are yet. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. If there's no more questions by the commissioners to Verizon, I'd like to offer Verizon and any of their representatives last chance to make any comments you want before we go to the public comment section. Bonnie, do you have anybody want to say anything further?
Sorry, it's muted. No, I don't believe so. I think we've said everything. We're happy to answer questions.
Very good. Thank you, Bonnie. Appreciate it. With that, we'll go to public comment. We'll take them in order. Carol Everhart of the Rehoboth Beach, Dewey Beach Chamber of Commerce. This is your opportunity for comment or questions, whatever you like.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Well, with regard to design or the way the visual may look, I don't think that's our place to comment, but I do want to make sure that everyone is very aware that between those that are renting, there's a residential house, but they're renting it out, the renter's there, they're requesting that they have better service, the visitors requesting it, the business community is requesting it. And then we have all of these folks working virtually here. And I suspect that may continue for a while. So I just want to make sure we'd already sent correspondence much earlier supporting that we go to 5G. And I will leave the design and visual up to the mayor and commissioners.
Thank you very much, Carol. Appreciate your comments. Walter Brittingham.
Good morning. I have pretty extensive experience in utility lighting and closed circuit television associated out on streetways, et cetera, to qualify myself. Dynamic presentations this morning by everybody. Serious delay in letting us know what the city was doing. The dark sky illumination is, and its issues are very appropriate. I think between 4G and 5G is Verizon's problem. In the past, we've had a cell on wheels put in, and I think that Verizon can deal with the issues. I see manufacturing and design delays, and I think some of the commissioners that this should be continued. I think there needs to be a delay with no expectation of getting it done this summer. We have a problem because the construction zone, we're no longer just a summer resort, and this is going to at least go into summer. The design of the pole ought to be with a cell antenna on the top, with some extreme input from the pole people for tenons, and put the lights below the cell tower antenna and the closed circuit television below it. And because I think there will be a delay in getting fiber optic and DP&L to it, Verizon can surely handle the fiber optic, that's in their domain, but Delmarva Power, you got to get the power to it, and then you're downtown in a construction zone. I think there'd be a common goal to continue. Don't worry about getting it done this season, and make the pole bigger at the bottom, and do it right the first time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Walter. Gary Glass.
I will pass.
Thank you, Gary. Honey Fisher?
How do I unmute?
You're on mute.
I'm unmuted.
We can hear you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor, for this meeting this morning. It's been so helpful. A lot of my questions have been answered. I'm looking down my list here. We've talked, I agree with Commissioner Byrne and Mr. Brittingham about slowing this project down. I don't know why it has to be rushed. Yeah, we learned a lot of information late, but hopefully it's not too late to get this done right. And my question is the purpose of the towers along the boardwalk are to benefit the people on the beach. Is that correct?
Restate your question, please.
Well, it's been my understanding that these new antennas that we're putting along the boardwalk are to benefit the people that are on the beach.
So this is Bonnie again. The beach and the boardwalk and the surrounding areas, which, as you know, gets really high traffic areas for the same reason that, we're looking to install them along Rehoboth Avenue, because you have people in restaurants and cars. And so those are high traffic areas that put a lot of strain on the network in those areas. So it's not just the beach itself, it's that whole surrounding area.
Okay, I understand that. Okay, thank you. But weren't we told that this type of cell doesn't penetrate glass and walls? Or is that something else? I'm looking at the notes that I have, and it says that the 5G small cell does not penetrate glass or walls. So if that's the case, it's not going to help the people in their homes or in the restaurants. Is that?
It doesn't fully penetrate there. So, but it's going to get the people on the boardwalk, in the beach, and, on the roads around there. Yes.
Okay. All right. I have one more comment that I don't think has been addressed. You talk about the light or the cells causing a shadow on the boardwalk. But I'd also like to point out that it's going to reflect on those antennas and create, I don't know what it's going to do until we see a mock-up, but it could create a lot of glare just bouncing off of it. And all the other questions I had been answered. I really appreciate everything that's been discussed today. Thank you.
Thank you, honey. Your concerns are noted. We appreciate it. With that, we'll go to Mike Strange.
Okay, as I say, can you hear me now? Yes, thank you, Mayor and Commissioners, and the presentations. I do have a couple of comments, but there's one that I want to express explicitly, which only came about because of Bonnie Metz's comment, where she made a reference to the shot clocks having long expired. That is a factually, legally incorrect statement. The shot clock hasn't even started yet. The shot clock does not start until you have an accepted design under the three criteria, under the three non-fee exempted criteria that the applicant must meet on behalf of the city and the city requires. So that's extremely important. It goes directly to the commissioner's comments about even though Verizon would like to complete this installation before summer, that is a decision that they would like to complete for their own personal corporate gains. However, for the city, our benefit is if it is done correctly. The current proposals, although reasonably actually pretty good, are not as good as they could be. And I think it's very important that, as was mentioned earlier by the mayor, that we consider chains of causality. As he himself said, there were some things that weren't considered when these poles were originally put in. And now in hindsight, we know, gee, maybe we should have done a few things differently. Well, now that we have that, now that we know that, let's not make similar mistakes going forward. The current design is almost pretty good, but not sufficient for the future. And therefore, whether it's 5G or 4G, this turns out to be a 5G installation. There are alternatives that if you wish to keep the current design, you can minimize the external boxes, even in the current design that Kevin has. It still can be done where the pole has no externalities on it, and they are actually put below the pole, under the boardwalk, next to it in a different type of architecture and structure. So basically, even though Verizon has done a lot of creative work, it still suffers, well, I shouldn't say suffers. It really is something we call an engineering twatty. That's the way we've always done it. And that doesn't mean for any particular design. It's just something they're used to. They do it, they modify it a bit, they change it, and they do what's ever in their best financial advantage for them, not necessarily for us. And they do it to the extent for us, and again, there's nothing wrong with this, that they can get away with. So I think the issue is, since we have, under the law of the time, the shot clock hasn't started because the design isn't completed, and the three non-exempted criteria need to be met. The dark skies is a separate issue. However, that also could be, by dint of construction, be accommodated with the appropriate design. So you already have my other comments and letters that were sent to the mayor and previously presented to the Planning Commission, and I think Rehoboth needs to get this right, and it's on the verge of getting it wrong if they rush to judgment and permit it to go forward with a design that is, quite frankly, not sufficient yet. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Megan, did you want to respond to that?
Yeah. Thank you, if I could.
Megan is
yes, Megan
Verizon.
Riley.
With Verizon. Go ahead, Megan.
Yes, I am legal counsel for Verizon, and I did want to interject at this point just to make a correction here. Bonnie was absolutely accurate when it comes to the law that governs the timeframes in which the city must render a decision on a small cell application. The shot clock, under federal law, the shot clock must start upon submission of application. And nothing would toll that shot clock. But if the application is found incomplete, material incomplete for some reason within the first 10 days, then the clock starts anew upon resubmission. There are very special shot clocks applicable to small wireless facilities, and the 60 days starts on application. And as Bonnie mentioned, Verizon, this shot clock is designed to facilitate our deployment of 5G, in addition to other legislative relief that has been granted to Verizon and other providers over the last few years. And this is the relationship with the city is very important to Verizon, and this is why we have worked in good faith and engaged with the city for many months now. And I will say we're getting to the point where we are being prevented from providing service to our customers, and the time frame has become a very big deal to us. So I just wanted to also
thank you, Megan, very much. With that, we'll go to continue with public comment. Jan Conacy.
Thank you, Stan. First of all, I want to point out how I was aware that when these original poles were put up, that there was an attempt to make them dark sky compliant, and back that many years ago. And I thank you for thinking of that. You were ahead of your time. I do want to point out, I've had a conversation with a lighting expert, who has, let's see, well, I can tell you his credentials. He's a lighting has a lighting certification from National Council on the Qualifications of Lighting Professionals, accredited professional with USGBC Leadership, Energy, and Environmental Design. He's the National Studio Director for Printback Lighting Studio. And I will send to Anne to have included in the public record his comments. He is also a lifetime visitor, seasonal visitor to Rehoboth Beach, and plans to move here when his youngest child graduates from high school. So he's very familiar with our plan and familiar with our lighting, and actually has done the lighting project for Malibu, California, that is dark sky compliant. He talks about how our lighting got developed and why why it's used, why it was used. And, but light has changed since the early 1900s. And that's why our fixtures, which were modeled all for the historic fixtures, are no longer appropriate because the kind of light that you use in them has illuminated so much that we're causing all of this light pollution. The technology, the 5G technology, has a direct impact on the aesthetic of the beach and the boardwalk. And as you all know, our boardwalk these days is on CNN and every other news station on a regular basis. It needs to be better than best. And I just can't believe that Verizon would want to be responsible when a reporter said, "What happened to your boardwalk?" And we say, well, this is what happens with technology and 5G, and we had no choice. The other thing I will also point out is that this is kind of an example of what happens when the public finds out something at a later stage, when you have to read in the Cape Gazette to see a picture of what's being planned. And we've talked to this guy, and we talked to a couple of other people at the Dark Skies Association. And the first thing everybody says is, when you're looking at a space like the boardwalk, you should have the public involved from the very beginning. That didn't really happen here as well as it should have. And I'm so glad that this meeting is happening today. Better late than never. So their suggestion is that we identify somebody who is a lighting expert to work with us on the lighting of the city as a whole. And what we want to do on the boardwalk, not just 5G, but how we want it to look, how we want the lighting to look, what needs to be displayed, what doesn't, and that we work with lighting professionals on this, and that we'll have a much better outcome in the end. So thank you, Stan, for having the meeting today, and I really appreciate this opportunity. And I will send this to Ann to be included in the record.
Thank you, Jan. With that, we'll go to Heather Metz.
Yes, hello everyone. I'm Heather.
Heather, would you identify yourself? Are you speaking on your behalf as a resident of the town and or as a representative of the Environment Committee, please?
Can I pick both?
Sure.
Okay, great. Because I am a resident and I am also a member of the Environment Committee. I just want to thank Michael and Jan for their comments. I agree with them 100%. I also would like to address Bonnie Metz's comments from Verizon directly. And while I appreciate your comments about your time constraints, I just want to point out that these poles will stand on our boardwalk for the next few decades, and we really need to get this right. As a frequent visitor to the beach last summer with hordes of teenagers and cell phones, I can tell you that there was no problem with our cell service last summer on the beach. I think that your statement that you will not be able to provide service this summer is a little bit of an overstatement. I do definitely understand the difference between the 5G and the challenges that you will face, but I think that's a bit of an overstatement. And I would caution to alarming people that we won't have any cell service on the beach next summer unless we push this forward. In addition, I think that nobody is really aware of all of the antennas that sit on top of the Star of the Sea and the Henlopen Hotel. If you walk down the boardwalk and look up, you can see them all. And that's what's been providing your service on the beach. And those will continue to be in operation all next summer. In addition to the comment about people working virtually, again, I've made this comment before, most people that are working virtually are doing it from their Wi-Fi in their residence or their rental property, and that is providing a bulk of that service. And the comment about providing a mock-up of the pole, I think that is an excellent idea. That's typically what's done for a construction project for something that's going to have a big aesthetic impact, to build a mock-up and let everybody look at it in real life. And I think that's a great idea. I support that 100%. I want to thank Mayor Mills for your excellent photos. I've also taken some photos of some other towns of other 5G installations, and I'm really concerned about the new light poles on the boardwalk from an aesthetic perspective. As a member of the Environment Committee and a resident, I was shocked to see the new pole that went up in front of the Belmore Inn. I think you had a photo of that, Mayor Mills, in your presentation. It has exposed wires. I was shocked. Honestly, I can say as a resident, and I would imagine every other resident will look at that and be shocked. That's what's coming our way. And I really question whether that meets the aesthetic goals of our city and our CDP. Some additional concerns that I have, that the impact of the light pollution on the wildlife is well documented, but what about the impact of the increase in radio frequency on the sensitive ecosystem of our beaches and our dunes? I feel like we should be a little proactive here and maybe work with DENREC to monitor any of these effects. And also, if we do take the step of installing dark skies lighting, and we want to get some measure of, are we improving things for the dunes, for the wildlife? Have we made an impact? And we won't know that unless we study it before and after. Another question is, how will these new poles accommodate any future co-locations by other carriers? As we know, the law provides that we must enable anybody that puts up an antenna on a pole, that anybody else can also put their antenna on a pole. So I think Michael Strange pointed this out previously, that by putting up that installation, you are opening it to every other carrier being allowed to put their antenna on that pole. And I don't know that there's a plan for the future for that happening. And again, just to stress that the County of Sussex CDP stresses that the views of the ocean should always be preserved. And that's pretty much it. I just wonder if Verizon does have any information on anywhere in the world or the country of any environmental impacts of this type of installation on this type of sensitive ecosystem. I would refer that question to Bonnie.
Can you say that again?
Yeah, sure. I'm just wondering if anyone at Verizon has any information on the impact of installing this type of radio frequency transmitting array of poles in a sensitive ecosystem like a beach and a dune. Any impact to wildlife? Have there been any studies like that?
Well, Heather, you know, this conversation is really focused on aesthetics of the lighting and the pole. You know, the deleterious effects of radio waves and stuff was more of a conversation while we were having, looking at amending the code. So I'm not sure how appropriate it is now. Bonnie, you can choose to answer or not.
This is Megan. I can give a brief answer to this, and I can assure you, Ms. Metz, that we are a heavily regulated industry, right? And there are a number of regulations designed to ensure that nothing we do would, cause any harmful environmental effects. We're highly incentivized to make sure that we comply with those regulations. So yeah, I just wanted to reinforce that.
Thank you, Bonnie. Is that all, Heather?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much, Heather. We'll go to our last public speaker is Frank Cooper. Are you there?
I am. First off, I'd like to thank you, Stan, very much for having this meeting, and better late than never, as somebody said. As far as dark skies coming to this late, that's true to a degree, but it is in the CDP of 2010, and it was part of what was originally specified to be on the boardwalk. At this late date, it appears that in everybody's interest, it would be good to move forward with the poles, as Verizon has spent a lot of time and the city management has spent a lot of time on this. I have a question for Tom, the lighting designer. Is he still on?
No, he's not. No, he's not, Frank.
Well, I'm wondering whether there isn't some kind of compliant lamps that we might retrofit onto the design of the pole that Verizon has designed, and possibly or all of the poles that are on the boardwalk for that matter, that would kind of meet everybody's goals here. And
Didn't he,
so,
Frank, he said that, and we're looking at that. So
right.
I'm
So,
confident that we'll be attentive to this. And again, Tom of Illuminations mentioned that he was seeking them out, and I thought he indicated that he indeed had identified.
Being developed.
Who?
Being developed.
Being developed. Okay.
right.
So
Okay.
in the works. Go ahead,
Right.
Frank.
And also it seemed to me, I've seen pictures of double arms that fit on top of the poles as opposed to being on a flange on the side of them. And something like that might work too, in the sense that if the lamps were not shining directly on the 5G antennas, it might be a more attractive solution, and that with not using globe lights, if they were down shining lights, that it might be dark sky compliant and still be compatible with the poles we have. So I'm glad that somebody's looking into that. That's my primary concern, and that I honestly believe that with technology and the right product, that we can find a solution that works for everybody here. I'd like to thank Bonnie and Verizon. I think they've done a lot of work here in good faith. And the Dark Skies Initiative seems like it's come out of nowhere. It really hasn't. But this is because of a previous administration that did not involve the public. And this is what you get. This is exactly what you get. And this is why we had the last election, and why we chose, as the people of Rehoboth Beach, to change the administration and our approach to these things. Going forward, I would suggest that we look at a master plan, our CDP, and that we have a vision for this city aesthetically, what it is, a target. This city looks like this, so that these little components, that when you pick lights, that when you pick, whatever it is, sidewalk, materials, all of these things fit with that plan, that we have a visual CDP, and that we have a design committee, either freestanding or as a part of the planning commission, that reviews all of these things up front, so that we don't get into an 11th hour discussion, and that there's guidance for the city, so that Sharon Lynn and others do not waste their time on dealing with situations like this, where they've put many, many hours into this, and only to find that the public has a different idea on it. So I think that if there's nothing else from this meeting today, that we've learned that early public input and professional guidance is appropriate. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Frank. And I do think we do have lessons learned, as you mentioned, and also as articulated by Jay Legree. The more we can get out in front, the better. This is what it was. I would like to suggest that a reminder that Dark Skies is not relevant to Verizon. They're doing their thing. The globes and the light fixture is on us. I will say that I believe we are very attentive to the Dark Skies desire and compliance, and we'll seek that the best we can. I do want to reiterate in my mind that Verizon and the city have worked together for over a year plus, as articulated, and they work together in good faith, massaging the design to again comply with matching the existing light poles on the boardwalk as best they can. I don't know that this needs an end discussion for the Boardwalk and Beach Committee and the public. I think it can continue. If you recall, one of the exercises by the Beach and Boardwalk Committee while I was chair was looking to the future, that if there was a catastrophic event and the boardwalk needed to be rebuilt, what would we do? This might be that perfect opportunity to look at it. Saying you want gooseneck lights over the boardwalk is one thing, but have you really debated it? I would debate that what's worse, some of the shadows or seagulls pooping on their people. That's realistic, and I think it needs to be part of the conversation, weighing the pros and cons of this. So I would suggest that this doesn't end the conversation, that you continue to look at dark skies compliance, not just the boardwalk, but the rest of the town, and that you look at pole options in the future. So we'll get some comments, and then we will conduct I expect to conduct a formal vote on how to proceed. Commissioner Gay?
Yes, thanks, Mayor. First of all, I'll reiterate what others have said, and it's great to have this meeting, to have this discussion, and to have as much public input as we've had today. And I will say that listening to all this, I'm reminded of that old line that laws are like sausages. It's better not to see them being made. And I think you can extend that now to 5G. This has been a sort of a messy process, but that's the nature of it, I think. And one of the things I think is interesting, I just have a couple of comments sort of about where we are. First of all, I realize this came about as dark skies, but as I said earlier, the issues are there whether we're talking about dark skies or not, in terms of the change in lighting that having the antennas and having those poles brings to us. So I would just ask, where will we be if we don't address that now? If we move ahead with no changes at all, where will we be when those are installed? It may be a rude awakening. So I think it is worth our time to get it right, as several people have said. I also thought it was interesting. I think it was Bonnie who said, that we are one of the first in the state, and that was comforting, because it makes me think that I know everybody has been operating in good faith, and I think we're basically the guinea pigs. This is what happens when you're an early adopter. You go through some growing pains, and I think that's what's happening here. But I'm also very sensitive to the fact when you say that we're one of the first in the state to have these installations of 5G. I'm also reminded that the boardwalk, which is the primary topic of the discussion today, is not only one of our most valuable assets, it's one of the most valuable assets in the state. So the stakes are high, and we really, I think, do need to get it right. So I look forward to moving ahead. I'm pleased to see that there are probably compromises and alternatives that can be done that involve the lights without messing with the current pole design. I'd like to think that there are workable solutions. I'm also aware that whatever workable solutions we may come up with have a budget impact, and we're in the middle of budget season and getting toward the end of budget season. So we need to be aware and to put that into play as well. That's all.
Thank you. Commissioner Calusi? You're muted.
Thank you. I agree with Commissioner Gay. This is a really, really important. The boardwalk is who we are. And the thing that I guess I have the biggest question about right now, and knowing that it's been over now a couple of years since this has been going on, that we as commissioners and the public understand the process for moving forward. I don't want to have another meeting like this and feel that we haven't been involved in the process or have an understanding as the process moves along through city staff of where things are. So I just want to make sure that will happen and that we can move forward with something that will make sense over time. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other Commissioner comments? Commissioner Legree?
Yeah, I agree. I hated to hear that the ship has sailed. That's not the kind of news I wish I could be hearing. We talked about having a lighting expert. I would hope that going forward, we would hire or find an expert who can deal with the telecommunications companies. I know that Newark, who planned their poles 3 years ago, and the ones which I have used for much of my base information, has different designs, and they used an expert outside company to deal with the telecommunications, just like we're talking about right now to deal with the lighting. I would like to ask a very pointed question of Bonnie. It is my understanding that you folks are going to be using between the 28 and 39 gigahertz for your telecommunication, for your radio frequencies that you're going to broadcast out on the beach, which requires a totally different antenna. Am I correct?
I'm going to ask Tony to talk about this.
Okay.
Well, yes, you're right. You're correct.
Okay, so we're in another area as far as antenna design. However, there are companies, if you research the literature, you'll find that there are companies who offer shrouded antennas for that range of frequencies, and they look different from the antennas that we see now. I don't have much else to say. I just hated to hear that the ship has sailed, and I also realize that Verizon can say your ship has sailed. We got to get to work, and they can be perfectly legally capable of doing that. It's just unfortunate. Thank you very much, Mayor.
Thank you. Commissioner Gossett.
Yes, thank you. And thank you for all the comments today. I'm trying to figure a clear path forward of how to go forward from here. There are certainly several ideas on the table that need consideration, but I guess two of the things that strike me as direct conflicts, and unfortunately we go back to a litigious society that we are today, that one individual that is very knowledgeable in the fact of Mike Strange said that regarding the shot clock, not as effective until the design is accepted. And then Megan Riley from the Verizon stated it's not upon the submission of the application. So I'm confused about if there is an accurate statement there or how those are based. And then Megan Riley also then commented further that this could become a very big deal to us. So I'm not quite sure what is directed by that comment. So I'd like to, figure out a path forward, whether it's based on aesthetics, based on what we're going to look like in 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years from now on the boardwalk, or we look at what we're looking at, in a week or 12 to 16 weeks for the production of the manufacturing. So I think for all of us to come up with a clear path forward, trying to take into consideration all comments made today is what needs to happen. And at the present time, I really don't see that happening. And I don't know how that can come about, if that's a lead between two people or, again, another conversation such as this. So just want to try to establish a clear path forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. I'd like to ask our city solicitor, Glendon Dallas, to weigh in on the shot clock issue.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor, because this is really an important part of the discussion so that the commissioners understand the context and the environment in which city staff is trying to manage these applications through the ordinance that we've got in place and through the FCC regulations and directives. So in June of 2020, the FCC issued a full directive that clarified a number of things. One of the things that it clarified is the shot clocks. So as to the two perspectives that were given today as to how the shot clocks operate, I agree that Megan Riley with Verizon has the better explanation of how the shot clocks operate. So when the application is submitted, as I understand the FCC directive, when the application is submitted, the shot clock starts. City Hall has 10 days to evaluate the application. If City Hall within 10 days identifies something in the application that is deficient, not compliant with our ordinance, not compliant with an FCC regulation, and identifies that to the utility provider, the shot clock stops. Then the utility provider has an opportunity to amend their application and resubmit. Once they resubmit, a new shot clock is initiated. And there's a new 10-day window that's established. And if City Hall again identifies something within that 10-day window that is deficient in the application, the shot clock is terminated. So the question here really is, has Verizon at this point submitted a complete application consistent with FCC regs and consistent with our code? If it has, then Bonnie is correct. The shot clock has gone, well past the 60-day window. The issue I think that's getting confused is, has the application been complete and Verizon has just been working with us to get closer to a design that's more acceptable to the city, or is there some actual deficiency in the application? I think what I've heard from city staff is that Verizon has worked in a good faith way to try to develop something for the boardwalk that would be acceptable. And this all has to be kind of over the, looked at under the broad umbrella of the considerable work that the commissioners did to put an ordinance into place that would address a lot of these issues. I mean, had you not taken the time to hire a consultant, spend a long time, considerable money, putting together an ordinance, none of this negotiation that's been happening with Kevin and Verizon and the resubmittals to try and get a better poll, the design guidelines wouldn't exist. And a utility provider could come in with something much worse, I think, than where we currently are. And we would have had a difficult time denying it. It's true that the FCC regs do give the city, especially after the clarifying case out of Portland, they do give the city some latitude as to aesthetics, certainly. Our ordinance does a better job of that, though. So, the dark skies thing seems a little bit unfortunate that, it seems like an initiative that everybody wants to get behind. Hopefully it's something, though, that can be addressed separately from the 5G rollout. Because, again, some of the conversation today was about whether the commissioners should delay 5G and wait till next year. At the core of this issue, and I think it's important that we all understand it, is that that's not a decision point for the commissioners. If the utility provider decides that Rehoboth Beach is a good location for 5G and it's in need of it, the FCC regulations give the provider the right to move in and expand their network within our city. The best we can do is try and manage it in a way that is acceptable to us. But to say we're going to not allow 5G until 2022, that's probably not something that's sustainable. That's what I have to say.
Okay. Thank you, Glenn. Thank you, Glenn. Again, for me, I go back and look at Bethany Beach. It has no antennas on the boardwalk. And the antennas are on the western edge of the boardwalk. I have to go back and reiterate that, we did talk about whether to require all the antenna on the west side of the boardwalk, and that failed, and that led us to how we got here today, so to speak, that we're talking about antenna being installed on the easterly edge of the boardwalk. Back then, if it was true what Glenn said, that we were told that the antenna won't work well on the western edge, well, Bethany Beach almost disproves that, doesn't it? Because we were told earlier that the 5G purpose is for the boardwalk and the beach patrons, more so than those in buildings. So I'm disappointed again that we didn't do that, but again, we are where we are. We need to articulate a path forward. That path forward, I've heard everybody. I don't know whether we want to take a formal vote on dark skies, but I hear everybody very clearly that we want to take up compliance with dark skies. To me, that's settled. The bigger question is, Do we authorize the city manager to proceed with the Boardwalk installation of 5G wireless communications facilities in the design that's proposed to us, or very close to the design that's proposed to us? And so that's the motion I'm going to ask for. However, before we take a vote, and notice the motion's in the affirmative. Before we take a vote, we need to decide, and hopefully everybody has in their mind what a negative vote means if it fails. That if we don't authorize to go forward, what does that mean? It means the design stop. We've heard that it means that there be no 5G installation this summer. On the good end, perhaps, it gives us more opportunity to study the issues, but there are some negative things with this. I'm a little flummoxed, I guess, because I know how hard Kevin and Sharon worked with Verizon in good faith over the past, 14, 16 months on these projects. And, I think that even if we go forward with them, they can always be changed in the future. I hate to say that because I hate spending taxpayer money on it. But if there's a big damage to the boardwalk, there's that opportunity. So it doesn't have to necessarily be permanent. But again, I think there needs to be more study before we stop Verizon and ask them to change the design if we want them to meet their summer deadline. So, Commissioner Calusi?
Yes, I think I understood the city solicitor to say that Verizon can probably move forward whether we vote to allow them or not. Is that not correct, Mr. Solicitor?
So we don't have, the commissioners cannot say, commissioners can make whatever motion, obviously, that you want to make. And you could make a motion that the city, not move forward. But the point I'm trying to make is that the FCC regulations give broad authority to utility providers to expand their networks in locations that they want to expand. So if we basically put a ban on 5G in an area that they want to expand, that is a case that they would win should they file litigation.
Well, I can tell you I don't have an appetite for litigation. So to me, to try to stop them from doing what they can do anyway doesn't seem like a way to work with them. I know that everyone has been working. It's been a good faith effort. I understand that. I know Kevin and the city manager and the representatives from Verizon have been trying to work towards doing what we have been saying, or the staff has been saying we want. So, I'm just saying, I don't have an appetite for litigation to say no, and then for us to have to be in a situation where we have to move forward anyway. So that's where I think it looks like we are. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's where we are.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Sernowski? You're muted, Ed.
Sorry about that. I agree with Commissioner Calusi. I guess my question is for you, Mayor, or for Glenn, why would we be taking a vote? Like, what are we voting on? Why wouldn't we just not take any action? I'm not sure what we're voting on, or I guess is my question.
Well, this is, Glenn, do you want to say something? I mean, this is an opportunity where we're responding to, I think, the Boardwalk Committee, maybe the Environment Committee, asking the mayor and commissioners to stop the project. So I think this gives us an opportunity to articulate, do we want it to go forward or do we want it to stop? And that's why we had this discussion today, so that we could better understand it and what our possible obligation is. Glenn, do you have anything to offer?
I guess the only thing I'd mention, Mayor, is that I agree with the commissioner that if no vote were taken today, the city staff would continue to implement the ordinance as it's currently written. So I think the boardwalk installation would probably proceed as it has been. But a vote here, because there's been some concerns raised by the boardwalk committee and shared in many ways by members of the board of commissioners, this is an opportunity for the board of commissioners to kind of endorse the activity that city staff's doing and give them, in some ways, the cover they need to move forward in a way that they feel confident.
I understand. I guess from a process and a procedural standpoint, if we vote to stop this, it needs to be for a reason, because we're going back to change the ordinance, or we're going back to change the design manual. We can't just stop it for no reason or a plan forward.
Well, Commissioner, if we do this motion in a affirmative to support going forward, and it fails, then I would intend to have additional discussion to identify exactly what you said. What does stopping the project mean? And does it mean that we're going to ban 5G forever? Or does it, what does it mean? We're going to have redo the design parameters, et cetera.
I guess where I'm struggling with on this is what this was brought to us strictly about the lighting, and we're kind of talking about 5G in general, rather than just the lighting part, which is what came before us today.
So noted. Thank you, Ed. Commissioner Gossett?
Yes, I'm also conflicted of why are we here today. It was brought forward about the dark skies, which, if I'm trying to carry this through, what we're speaking about specifically with the 5G affects 16 poles on the boardwalk. And my understanding from Kevin's comments earlier, we have 55 poles on the boardwalk. So how are we going to address the rest of those poles for a dark skies project without budgetary constraints or planning for a phase-in project or something of that nature? These are parallel issues, but I don't think they are clear as to what the problem is we're really trying to solve here. There are multiple issues on the table. I believe earlier there was discussion that prototypes are being developed of dark sky compliant retrofit shades or bulbs, baffles that are being looked at that could be answer the dark skies problem with our current poles. Whether they would affect the 16 poles at 5G are looking at or not, I'm not quite sure. So again, taking a vote, I don't know what we're trying to accomplish here. It seems like we're still missing answers to information that was brought forward today, whether it be retrofitting the current shades and design for a dark skies project, or trying to look at the 16 poles that 5G are currently looking at with regards to dark skies and aesthetics. So again, our solicitor said that, it would probably go to litigation if we were to stop our venture towards the 5G here. We haven't had 5G before. We've had brought in the cows in past years to supplement service. So again, I really am trying to figure out what problem we're trying to solve, and is it a multitude of problems that we really need to have more answers brought forward to us, which seem to be in the works with regards to the retrofit of lamps, but just really, and budgetary issues and the way in which the boardwalk appears consistently down. The boardwalk of all lights will be looking the same as they do now. Again, I'm just trying to figure out what we're trying to solve here on multiple levels. And I don't know if we have an answer to that. Thank you.
Commissioner, thank you.
All I can do is reiterate All I can do is reiterate my one point earlier, and that's the reports from the Boardwalk and Beach Committee and the Environment Committee asking us to endorse dark skies, and in particular to somewhat stop the 5G project until further analysis. So I think Glenn indicated earlier that if we just took no vote and choose to take no action today, then the light poles would continue and be installed as it is. Sharon?
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to add that, you know, we need clear direction because as I understand it, Verizon is set to order equipment and get ready for this. So what would be beneficial is to have that clear direction from the commissioners, just so the commissioners realize that that's the next step.
So we'll go back to some commissioners, Commissioner Byrne and Legree. Commissioner Byrne?
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. I agree with many of the comments that have been made the last several minutes in terms of our path forward. I have no appetite for litigation. I don't think the residents of the city want to see us get into spending a lot of money on litigation with the big media corporations. That would be a lose-lose for everyone, I suspect. We have an existing ordinance. I've listened closely to the solicitor's advice to us. I don't see a need to vote going forward because of the ordinance, because of the solicitor's advice. I'd like to see our emphasis going forward on endorsing dark sky compliance and then trying to figure out how to achieve that now and in the future.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Legree? You're muted. You're muted.
Gotcha. I want to remind everybody that the Boardwalk and Beach Committee wanted to delay moving forward, and we were asking for that delay because we want to proceed with dark sky compliance. The dark sky people tell us that that may not be possible using the pole, the antenna array, and the lighting that is indicated in the design that appeared in the Cape Gazette. I don't even know right now if that design was approved by the city, if it's just something that they're working on, if it's something that Verizon thought that had been approved. I just don't know. Going forward, we need expert advice from an organization that has a track record of dealing with telecommunication companies for the very problem that we're in right now. That probably, had we done that, we probably could have steered clear of all this controversy, and we would know. We would know if Councilor Mandelis is correct. If that has been approved, I suspect that it has, and I suspect that Verizon can probably do about what they would like to do going forward. And so we're at the mercy of the telecommunications companies. Now, as far as the 55 poles that we have, plus the 2 we have on the sidewalk, plus the 9 we have at street ends, those are a lot of opportunities for people to put 5G installations on. And I don't know whether Singular is now AT&T, but I don't know whether AT&T is going to get into the high band business and want to put 29 to 39 gigahertz antennas on the other poles. But we have a lot, because you subtract 16 from 57 plus 9, that's 60, whatever, 66. there's a lot of opportunities for 5G equipment. And we don't have a plan going forward. Our communications ordinance has two statements, I think it's two, where they say should adhere to stealth technology. And that's a pretty good thing to have in your ordinance. And so I'm no help at all. I'm just stating my opinions. And yes, I'm in favor of dark sky. I think that should be an overriding factor. And I also realize that it didn't hit Verizon until just, well, we first talked about it on 11 December, and that's not, or excuse me, 14 December, and that's not very long ago. So we're just at the mercy of Verizon. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Commissioner Gossett?
Yeah, thank you. I go back to, there was a proposal from Environmental Committee and Beach and Boardwalk to go forward with a dark sky proposals. I'm not aware of, and it may be in very specific written information as to what that really entails. Is this to have all poles in the city, all poles on the boardwalk? What really does the dark sky proposal entail? Is that something that is requires a budgetary commitment from the city that can be phased in over the years? Currently, as I understand it from today's discussion, our design standards for the 5G installations do not apply or do not have the consideration of dark skies. Is it an opportunity going forward that to rework those design standards for all future installations, and that applications do not meet the criteria with regards to the shot clock for our current design standards going forward, that then we can address any additional installations in the city? As Commissioner Legree has stated, there are quite a few other opportunities with poles. But I'm just grappling with the fact of what is the dark skies proposal? How does that really hit the, what do we hit the ground running with doing that and trying to implement that now or in the future? What is that we're trying to accomplish? And obviously that's got a budgetary requirement to it. And then if we have that paralleling with future installations, then our design guidelines require that. So if the applications don't meet those guidelines, the shot clock stops at 10 days, that we can review those and then go back and have to redesign them. I think we almost have to go forward with what we're doing currently, but looking to the future and the design of what we really want in dark skies and how our boardwalk is going to look in future. But again, that's just how I'm trying to think through this of a path forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. I agree with you. I think dark skies needs to be on its own agenda for a future workshop meeting where all those questions you just posed are absolutely appropriate and more discussion needs to take place. Commissioner Legree?
Can I say a little bit to Commissioner Gossett? Oh, hold on. Okay, I'm okay now. You hear me okay?
Yeah.
Patrick, can you hear me?
You're good, thank you.
Yeah, you're good.
On the Dark Sky website, if you download the requirements, we consider this, and you can make it, we can have a dark sky city, or right now, just for the boardwalk, we can apply to be a dark sky, I think it's an urban special place. And if you read that download, you will see the requirements that we have to satisfy in order to give the boardwalk a dark sky certification, and the dark sky compliance requirements are there. It is a high bar, and it's going to require some money. Maybe not a lot of money, but it's going to require that our lighting satisfy dark sky compliance, and also the lighting from the boardwalk that shines on other structures, which you immediately think about the acorn lamps. has to be compliant. So it's a high bar, Commissioner. Thank you.
I guess that's what I'm trying to determine here is that if we, for some reason, are able to slow or stop or redesign these 16 poles successfully to meet dark sky requirements individually, does that then in fact allow us to be a dark sky city? Or are we just kind of doing it a small percentage of this? I'm just not clear as to if dark skies is something that we strive to do, which is it sounds like a great idea. But how is that going to, it's not just the poles on the boardwalk. As you say, there are lightings from buildings, from everything else that fits into this. So the proposal going forward, or to become a dark sky city, what do we need to do? How much money do we need to invest in that? How many years is it going to take to get there? And again, I say, if that's what we strive to do, which I don't have all that information on that at this apparently, but other than the phrase dark skies is a great thing. And I'm not discounting that, but the path forward is, it's in conflict with some of the things we're doing. We're moving very quickly, not quickly, but we've been moving forward on the 5G implementations of the city. But if dark skies is now coming on board to parallel this, there's some way that we can combine these going forward. And again, the horse is out of the barn possibly on these 16 poles, but that's a greater amount of poles and lighting in the city that we have to address to be dark sky compliant, if that's what the city wants to go forward in doing. So again, I don't see a clear path forward. It seems like we have two separate decisions that parallel one another, but one is something that we really don't have a lot of information on, other than it's something we want to strive for, being dark skies. But 5G will eventually change, and greater need as autonomous cars come along, and we go from low band to mid band to high band, all of this changes. We're trying to keep ahead of ourselves, and I think we're honestly shooting ourselves in the foot to try to stop this or solve the problem this way right now. Let's assess where we are, assess what we want to go forward with, whether it be dark skies or prepare for the 17th pole that comes up here with a plan in place. I just am there's been conversation, we have retrofits of light bulbs and this type of stuff. Let's take a look at that, see what that can do. Maybe that'll solve the problem, but will that take an aspect of the dark skies also? I'm just trying to ascertain a commitment to what the city wants to do, how much of an investment we need for now in budgeting or CIP in the future, both with 5G and with the dark sky project.
Thank you, Commissioner. Look, I'm trying to move this along a little bit. The intent of this meeting was not to deliberate entirely on dark skies and examine it from every angle. I mentioned earlier that I think the appropriate time is to do that at a future workshop meeting. Again, dark skies is not relevant to Verizon. The intent of this, if you read the agenda language, it was really to focus on Verizon's plans and moving forward or not. So if you have further comments on dark skies, I would hope you would defer till we put it on its own separate topic on the workshop. Commissioner Sharnowski.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Commissioner Gossett. Eloquently expressed my feelings about this. But related to the agenda topic, Commissioner Legree made a comment about stealth technology and how valuable that is in our ordinance. And I guess my question is to him, by saying that, are you implying that the current plans in front of us by Verizon does not meet that standard, or it's not stealth technology?
You're muted, Commissioner Legree.
Yeah, shining a light down on the antenna array is not stealth technology. Using a small pole which forces all the boxes to be on the outside is not stealth technology. The acorn globes are not stealth technology. If you're wanting to minimize the appearance of the poles. Now, having said that, I think Verizon's working hard to try to satisfy us or to do anything they think we would want. If we would enlarge the poles to maybe 10 inches in diameter, we could put a lot of those radio boxes and perhaps even the meter and the switches inside the pole. If we would look at the latest technology in shrouding of high band antennas, we could make it look a lot better. It wouldn't look great, but it would look a lot better. I'm just saying that our ordinance allows us to ask those questions. That's stealth technology. And I could refer you to websites with part numbers. Thank you.
Thank you. Ed, are you done? Yep.
Yes, thank you.
All right, Commissioner Gay?
Yeah, I mean, this, obviously the dark skies part of this is a very long-term project and process. But we have to start somewhere. And the 5G is staring us in the face as the decisions, have to be made and as we reach the point of no return. So, I mean, I think that's why we're here. And I do wonder if there is something we can do in the near future. I mean, I think I heard Bonnie say that the manufacturing time on the poles was 12 to 15 weeks or something like that. And I don't know, I have heard that there are some design options, or maybe that our lighting, the guy that Kevin had was already, is already looking at some of those. I'm not sure, but I guess I just wonder, if we vote to put it on hold, or even if we come to a consensus to put it on hold, maybe not for long. I mean, are there short-term, solutions that would at least help us to get down the road? I'm also reminded that, remember, this has been in the CDP for 10 years, and I sure hope it's in the new one. But we've got to start somewhere.
Commissioner Byrne?
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. Commissioner Gay basically said what I've been sitting here thinking, and that is regarding dark skies, it is complex. It's a very comprehensive approach to lighting. It is a long-term process. To be sure, I think with the help of an outside expert, we can develop some short-term strategies that are probably relatively low cost. But I agree, our 10-year-old CDP and hopefully our new one calls for environmentally sensitive lighting, both commercial, residential, and public places. And I don't think that we can develop this, particularly a long-range plan, without some outside expertise helping us do all the things that that Commissioner Gossett indicated needs to go into this kind of thinking.
Very good, thank you. So I would like to bring this to closure. We have several options in front of us. One is to make a motion to authorize the city manager to proceed with the designs. If we choose not to make a motion, then it is assumed that, it will continue forward as designed without an affirmative vote. There could also be a vote, if you wanted to put it in the negative, to not authorize the city manager. I need either a motion, or I'm going to recognize your silence as the willingness to allow this project to continue as designed. Any comments?
Yeah, I for one prefer the status quo, that we leave things as it is based on the existing ordinance and the advice from the solicitor.
All right, very good. We don't need a motion for that. Again, if we just leave it silent. All righty, with that, we'll recognize that the city manager is authorized with her staff to continue and proceed with the design or close to the design as presented, and no further action needs to be taken at this time. Thank you very much. I want to thank all those that participated in this meeting. And I want to thank Verizon and your group, Bonnie, for being attentive, and we'll thank Tom Bales for participating. And with that, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.